Well, good evening, everybody. This is Evan Teach. I'm the Unified Town and Village Manager. Before the festivities of the evening get started, tonight is also the Village Board's annual organization meeting. And so for the board and the audience watching, here is the proceedings. I am going to ask the village board and only the village board members if they want to nominate a person for village president. I will also then ask if anybody else wants to be nominated. Then I will get a second, and then I will do a roll call. Once a village president is established, that person takes over the meeting from there and then asks for a nomination for a vice chair. Is that understood? Thank you. Okay. May I please have a nomination for village president?
I move Andrew Brown to be president.
I'll second that.
Is there, before I take a second, is there anybody else who wants to make a nomination?
Are you sure it's going to be a good, fun year?
No badgering of the witnesses, sir. Okay,
It's been a blast so far, Andrew.
Going twice. I have a second from George Tyler. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 I heard no nay. So 5-0, Mr. Brown is the village president. The meeting is yours, sir.
Thank you, Evan. Trustees, thank you again. I appreciate this honor highly. Having just been reelected to 3 more years and the tasks ahead of us, I'm looking forward to it, but more so looking forward to working with the 4 of you and our community as we move forward. So thank you. With that, are there any nominations for vice president?
I don't want to nominate anybody, but I would like to, before anybody attempts to nominate me, I'm wondering if someone else would like to be vice president. I have to admit, I completely forgot about our reorganization tonight. It was at very short notice. And so I'm wondering if one of our new members would like to have an opportunity, but it might be a little awkward to ask one or the other of them to step forward. So maybe I'll throw it over to Dan or Andrew, what your thoughts are.
I'm game.
Go ahead, Dan.
To put in for it. I've done it for a while, and it's a nice little experience. And I'd suggest that anyone interested throw their name in the hat. Or throw their hat in the ring.
Well, I'll tell you what. I would like to. I'm gonna nominate Raj Chawla to be vice president. Raj was here a little bit before Amber, and so he's sort of the next batter up. So I'm going to nominate as a surprise, sort of a surprise witness. I'm going to nominate Raj Chawla to be the vice president.
I'll second that nomination.
Thank you, Dan. Now, do we have any other nominations? Hearing no other nominations, no matter how much Raj tries to mouth another name.
No, seriously?
Well,
Okay.
what do you?
It's a vote of confidence, buddy. It's a vote
You
of
got this, Raj. I'll make it easy on you. I won't get sick.
Okay.
You do have to take the baseball cap off to take the, no, just kidding.
I need a haircut.
Yeah, you can't wear a hat. That's a one problem, Raj. You can't. Vice presidents have to expose their heads. You can't wear hats.
And they have to share their cinnamon buns.
Yeah.
All right. So, hearing no other nominations, all those in favor of Raj Chawla being village vice president, please signify by saying aye.
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 And hearing no nays, that seemed to have passed unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. Vice President.
Thanks, George.
There you go. Well, good luck, Raj.
Stay healthy.
Let me know if I can help.
Yes. Yeah.
And this is how an unviolent coup happens.
Yes, yes. It's, great empires fall because there's not an orderly transition of power. And I think we've just seen the orderly transition of power here.
George, I cannot understate your leadership. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thanks, George.
So with all of that done, do we have any agenda additions or changes tonight from staff?
No, unless you want to move a couple things to consent.
So I would like to propose items D, the considering approval of street markings on the north side of Maple Street, as well as E, to consider approval of grant applications for culvert crossing replacements at Densmore Drive and Brickyard Road from the main agenda into the consent agenda. The rationale for that is, personally, I don't see any of these things as controversial or things that we need a debate on. If any of you disagree, please let me know.
And is it appropriate to bring something out of the reading file?
We can always bring something out of the reading file. Would it be to discuss it?
Yes.
What would you propose to bring out?
E, in this case, it's listed as the letter regarding the crosswalk beacons. We can also discuss putting it on a future agenda. If it looks like we have a busy night, but I'll take whatever the board's.
I would prefer to do it at a later night.
I think that if it can wait another night, I don't believe that there's a time precedent on this. It looked like the next grant round may be available in July.
Yeah, I was basically going to want to do something, take a different path. We can talk about it another night.
Okay, so Evan, if you could put that onto the agenda for our next meeting, that would be greatly appreciated, or Marguerite.
And maybe a clarification, so you're okay to leave it on now? Yes. We leave it on the reading file, and we'll bring it on to the next agenda at your next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the executive session H was going to be, I would propose that we remove that from the agenda. I don't believe we need an executive session to talk about this.
I'm happy to second, but it sounds like there are a couple of different motions. Do you want to wrap it all into one motion, or
yeah?
What's your pleasure, Andrew?
I think it's fine to just wrap it all into one motion. I just first wanted to make sure that everybody would be okay taking those items out, though.
So, are you talking about moving H to regular discussion, or not discussing?
No, I believe our general discussion on H would be wrapped into F about, frankly, where are we going next?
Gotcha.
And I don't believe we need executive session to have that conversation.
Okay.
Okay.
And just to be clear, we do have, Mr. President, we do have that one item to discuss that is not related to next steps. Just a reminder of that.
I don't know what you're referring to.
We have Claudine here tonight. We have an issue that we wanted to bring up about the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, yes, I haven't forgotten about I.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Recap.
Okay.
So as a recap, D and E would come off of the business items and go to the consent, and H would just disappear.
So are we just going to move that we approve the agenda as amended?
It would work for me. If it works for you.
No, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second that.
I'll second that.
I think Raj beat you to it.
Yep, good.
Any further discussion on those motions? Or that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Okay, great. Thank you all. Now we have our agenda. And that brings us into public to be heard. So this is a portion of tonight's meeting where if there is anything that anybody wishes to bring up to the board that is not on tonight's meeting, now would be the time to do so. And if anybody wanted to discuss the outcome of the annual meeting, where we're going next, anything around separation or merger, those are the kinds of topics that would be appropriate when we have public comment in F, which will be happening sooner than initially anticipated. So if you are using Microsoft Teams, please go ahead, raise your hand, let me know you'd like to speak, and I will be sure to give you the floor time. I see no hands, and I am also not seeing anybody calling in, so we don't need to worry about people on the phone. So with no hands raised, I will go ahead and close the public to be heard portion, and we will go ahead and move on to business item 6A, the interview and possible appointment of Evan Lawrence to the Bike Walk Advisory Committee. And Mr. Lawrence, I see you here with us tonight. It's nice to have you here virtually.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
And typically we do offer, if there is anything that we discuss that may compromise your employment or things that may jeopardize your livelihood, if you will, to have this in open session, we can do it in private in executive session. So if you'd like to do so, we can. Otherwise, if you're okay moving ahead in the public session, we're happy to move forward.
The public session is fine.
Okay. So if you just don't mind starting off with your general, if you could expand upon your letter of interest, why you're interested, what you'd hope to bring to the community in this capacity, that'd be appreciated.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited to be a new member of Essex Junction. My partner and I just purchased a house in the village 2 months ago. So I'm just eager to try to help give back to a community that has already given back to me. We moved here about a year ago, right before the pandemic, from Colorado to Vermont. And it was a very safe landing spot during what was otherwise a very challenging time. And I just want to try to get my, setting some roots into my new community and help out as much as I can. I've been on a board of directors in different capacities in the past, and this just seemed like a avenue that felt like I could put good energy into. And obviously I want to see this community grow and prosper, and any way I can do that would be, something I'd have interest in.
Well, welcome to the village. We're thrilled to have you here. Thanks for choosing to live here.
Yeah.
And sorry you had to come during a pandemic. We're usually more welcoming.
Yeah, that was a challenge. We decided to move to Vermont before COVID was even a whisper. So it was kind of serendipitous to land in the safest place in the country, essentially. There was something about Vermont that we really enjoyed, and we wanted to get back to kind of the Northeast. And but it was a challenge to be moving across the country in March, and our housing originally fell through, so it was kind of a strange time. But like I said, we felt the community kind of wrap their arms around us immediately, and I want to have an opportunity to give back.
Other trustees, any questions for Evan?
Evan, I'll only say that I really liked the way your letter was written. It seemed to sort of, it resonated with all the things that we're looking for people on this committee, and it signals to me that you understand what this is about. So I just appreciated you taking the time to think about it and step forward. Appreciate that.
This is Raj. Evan, I used to be on the Bike Walk Committee. I'm really excited to have you step forward and kind of hear excited for the committee to get your perspective, especially being such a recent transplant for somewhere else. Is there anything, you've been here a year, it sounds like, right? Is there anything that stands out to you as something you'd like to address in the near future, and maybe, thinking longer term, having a fresh set of eyes, what are you seeing and what are you thinking about when you think about walking and biking and connectivity in this area?
Right. Yeah. Thanks, George, for the kind words about my letter. And to answer your question, Raj, I'd love to see what's already kind of on the docket as far as what other people have had in mind for the town. But ultimately, I am a cyclist, and I do like to use other modes of transportation if we can. I think it's a great way to explore our surroundings rather than speeding by in a car. So I've always been passionate about that. And anytime there's easy access to that, to get people out and to make it obtainable for people, I think is a real benefit. One of the things I've noticed in the short time that I'm here, so I am, again, to echo what you were saying about fresh eyes, I didn't notice a ton of bike parking space for us to lock up a bike if we wanted to hop into a restaurant, which isn't happening a ton right now, but for the future, it would be nice to have maybe some more space where that can happen. The sidewalks seem plenty wide enough, but
Yeah.
Ample parking for that, so people can feel safe and secure leaving a bike or something of that nature.
Mhm.
And then, as far as like long-term vision, it'd be really great to make our town even more accessible by bike or by a short walk, so that people can feel safe walking down streets, and whether that's additional bike lanes or a cohesive pathway that like really allows people to kind of move from one place to another. I've lived in bigger cities where they've been able to accomplish that. I've lived in small spots that do it well too. So it's certainly it's out there for us to want to try to evolve our town around, but nothing real specific. Just want to be part of the conversation, have a seat at the table, and be able to help in any way I can.
Great, thank you.
Trustees, any other questions? If there are no other questions, we could move to appoint Mr. Lawrence right now, if somebody wanted to make that motion.
I would move that I move the trustees appoint Evan Lawrence to the Bike Walk Committee. I just don't have, I'm scrolling through, I don't have the term length. I guess it would be 2 years, for 2 years.
It ends June 30, 2023.
Thank you. Sorry, I bumbled that.
No worries. And Dan, did I hear a second from you?
Yes.
Great. Trustees, are there any further discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor of appointing Evan Lawrence to the Bike Walk Committee, please say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing none, congratulations, Evan. We look forward to having you on the committee and seeing what else you can bring to our community.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next, we have a presentation on Across the Dotted Line, Community Connections in Essex from Gabrielle Smith from Heart and Soul of Essex, and I believe Henry Wu as well.
All right, so welcome everybody. Thanks so much for having us here. This is not going to be terribly long. We just wanted to have a chance to give you an overview. I want to make sure that, Henry, do you have access to sharing your screen?
Not right now, but if it,
I think I just
do,
rented it to you.
There
Oh,
you
thank you.
It should be set.
We're seeing him. We're seeing him, Gabrielle. I
Right.
see him. And
All
on
right,
chair.
so this photo story initiative was created and organized by the Heart and Soul of Essex. For those who are not familiar with us, the Heart and Soul of Essex is a nonprofit that was created 9 years ago to manage a grant from the Orton Family Foundation to implement their community heart and soul engagement model here in Essex. The nonprofit has continued since the end of that project in 2014 with the purpose of stewarding and highlighting the 6 community values that were identified through the project with input from over 1,000 residents of Essex. Those values are local economy, health and recreation, community connections, education, thoughtful growth, and safety. For more details about the values and information on the activities and outreach to gather the data that went into them, please visit our website at www.heartandsoulofessex.org.
Across the Dotted Line was designed to help get out the vote for the April 13th ballot and to engage residents of the town of Essex to post photos and story captions that describe a connection you share across the dotted line that is the border of the village within the town. Essex residents were invited to submit a photo and a caption with a short story about the people in the photo, their connection across the dotted line, and if they were inclined, something they both love about Essex. Photos and story captions were submitted via email or with the hashtag across the dotted line on Facebook or Instagram. More details on the project and a growing photo gallery can all be found on our website at heartandsoulofessex.org.
So there are 13 stories and photos and story captions in our gallery. They've been also shared via Facebook and Instagram. Residents took photos especially for the initiative and also submitted existing photos. We'd like to go through the gallery of photos with your permission and read aloud the story captions. We estimate this will take less than 5 minutes.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Great, thanks.
No, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to ask first, I know you have a full agenda. I'd also like to offer that if there's anyone in the public who wishes to read their own caption, if you could raise your hand in Teams and staff could help me and see that if you'd like to read your own caption. All captions are less than 100 words. And just remember to unmute yourself, and then when you're done reading, remute yourself. And then we'll take turns reading aloud the other photos, and of course, we'll each read our own. So our first photo is from Vasanti Mayet and her husband. Vasanti was one of our original Heart and Soul volunteers. And her story caption says, "We've been married 16 years. He grew up in the Junction. I grew up in the town. We've lived in Essex our whole lives, raising our family in the town we grew up in and loving all that Essex has to offer them. Great schools." Here we go. I can't see because, thank you. No. Yeah, there you go. Great schools. No, sorry. Can you bring it just a little bit up, Henry? Sorry about that. I've got that wonky thing blocking me. There we go. Perfect. Great schools, great community, thoughtful growth, development, and safety. Vasanti and Justin Mayet. I'm going to click to the next one, Henry.
Oh, sorry, I froze. Do you want me to read the next one?
Yeah, that'd be great. Unless you see that.
Okay.
There you go.
The next one is yours.
Great. Okay. All right. So this is me and my sister, Stephanie. From 2001 to 2014, we were active volunteers with the Heart and Soul of Essex. We both still have several mementos we hold dear. One is this T-shirt with the 6 core values that our community identified. Our parents recently bought a house together with me in the village, just a mile away from Stephanie in the town. We're so happy to be near each other here in Essex with great services, wonderful local businesses, and a beautiful landscape. Next up is Sue McCormick.
I can read this one. Or is Sue here?
Let's see if Sue wants to jump in.
Oh, yeah.
You out there, Sue? Want to do it?
I'm good with Henry doing it.
All right. Go ahead, Henry.
All right. We are cousins. 2 of us live in a bustling neighborhood near 5 corners in the village. 2 of us live in a cabin in the town outside the village. Before the pandemic, we used to hang out in the neighborhood for trick-or-treating, socializing with the neighbors, or walking to get a creamy. We used to hang out at the cabin to listen to birds, watch bats, have a bonfire, or hear the band play. It's the best of both worlds. We can't wait to go back to our back and forth.
Next up is our Phyllis and John Wiley, who live in the village, and Betsy and Paul Fleming, who live in the town outside the village. Across town, across the years. Our friendship began when our kids both attended Founders School. The kids' activities brought us together on the sidelines at school and sporting events, and deepened over many years of home and away games, team dinners, sleepovers, and more. Now, even though we moved to the village and the kids have grown up and out of the house, we still have fun together and value the ties that bind us.
This next one is from Robin Moore, a town outside the village native and village resident, and Brian Sheldon, a village native and town outside the village resident. We believe that everyone in Essex is our neighbor, and we believe great things happen when Essex works together. Between them, over 10 state championships for Essex.
Next up is you too, Henry.
All right. So next is me, Henry Wu, my brother Nathan Wu, and our friend Patrick Heron. Patrick lives in the village, and Nathan and I live in the town outside the village. Even before Henry and Nathan lived in Essex, we shared a common bond through soccer. Throughout middle and high school, we competed against and with each other in soccer, track and field, cross country, Nordic skiing, and Scholars Bowl. Even as we prepare to go off to college, we still run together and are grateful for our friendship formed through academic and athletic pursuits.
One of my favorite photos. Athena and Sarah Michelle met because of a shared interest to become one community of Essex. They have also learned that they have many things in common. They both adore and cherish their children, love their families, love to dance, hike and run, and discuss politics. They look forward to getting together in person soon after COVID to go for a hike and celebrate with their families together. Athena Newhart, Town of Essex resident, and Sarah Michelle Stultz, Town and Village of Essex Junction resident.
Is Tracy here? I'm not sure if she'd like to read this one.
I am actually, if that would be okay.
That would be great.
Tim Miller, Essex Junction firefighter, and Tracy Delphia, newest member of the town select board, share an appreciation for all things Essex. Whatever side of the dotted line they find themselves on, rest assured these two are enjoying everything Essex has to offer. With so much to do, it's easy to love where we live.
Thank you, Tracy.
People hear my voice all the time. Go ahead.
All right. Mom Mary Ellen and son Andrew not only share a love of good food and many genes, they share a love for all of Essex. Whether it be a hike or fishing in Indian Brook, playing in one of the many parks, listening to a fair concert from the comfort of their own home, and more, they know Essex is more alike than different.
The next one, wait, is Annie?
Oh, there's
Annie's
Annie.
here.
Thanks, Annie.
Hi, thank you. Lisa and Annie first met 15 plus years ago when Lisa's children took swim lessons with Annie. They have remained in one another's lives and are now very close friends. Annie's son, Cale, taught Lisa's children film as an instructor with Essex Junction Recreation and Parks. Throughout the pandemic, Lisa and Annie have gone on many walks throughout the town. Annie has enjoyed the ab workout from Lisa, making her laugh so hard while they walk. Both Lisa and Annie have worked with children and families in Essex for many years. Lisa Allen and her family lived for 17 years in the village and for the past 5 years in the town outside the village. Annie Cooper lived and raised her children in the town outside the village from 1996 and in the village since 2009.
Thanks, Annie.
I can take this next one. So this is my mother, Dong Dong Lin, and her friend Yen's son. Dong Dong and Yen first met at the Brownell Library and became close friends soon after. They danced together in the Vermont Chinese School dance group, and their kids took piano lessons with the same teacher. Today, they enjoy hiking and improving their cooking skills together, and they are thankful to have bonded over their shared Chinese culture. And I think there's one more. No, there's two more.
Right. As senior members of the Essex Town, oh, Pat's on the line. Patrick, you want to? Okay. As senior members of the Essex Town Select Board, Pat Murray and Andy Watts understand the need for Essex Town and Essex Junction to work together for the best interests of all residents, regardless of the outcome of the vote. Together, they worked many volunteer hours getting the revote ballots ready to mail out to all active voters. Andy and Pat have served together for 2 years and look forward to continued collaboration in the year to come.
Okay, I think I might have seen Karen here. I mean, there's like not much to read, but
You can just read the quote. Yeah. Right.
If Karen's here, does she want to read it?
I would be happy to.
Okay.
The vote is precious. It is the most nonviolent tool we have in a democratic society. We must use it. From Congressman John Lewis.
Thanks, Karen. So we had hoped to see many more residents participate. Given that the response has been very low and the merger revote is over, the board is inclined to end the project along the original timeline that we announced of April 12th. The initiative has had no costs other than the time that Henry and I have put into it. We're not requesting any funds or time of staff or trustees. Our current plan is to maintain the photo gallery and keep it up for a period of time, probably a few more weeks, at the discretion of the board of Heart and Soul of Essex. And we will continue to manage the social media hashtags as well.
Why was this the time to promote our shared value of community connections? While there were many voices in the community sharing information and differing points of view, especially about the revote on the merger, Heart and Soul of Essex offered a reminder that we are connected by our history, our economy, our schools, our social networks, our faith communities, our volunteerism, our landscape, and so much more. Relationships are an easy way for people to think about and actualize this. A photo is a powerful storyteller. The Heart and Soul of Essex project sought to ensure that as Essex continues to grow and change, we hold on to what is special about our community and that decisions reflect what matters to the people who live and work here. This initiative is a continuation of that purpose. We hope that many residents will enjoy viewing the gallery at heartandsoulofessex.org and photos as they are shared on Facebook and Instagram.
Thanks, Henry. So we'd be interested to know if any of the trustees or members of the public in attendance see any reason to continue the project, as the board could take that under advisement. And we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Gabrielle, Henry, thank you both so much for this, not just for the presentation, but also for just this initiative in general. Personally, I found it enjoyable to just talk with my mom about something different. It was a great opportunity, and I really appreciated that, as well as just seeing the connections that do exist that we don't talk about on a regular basis. So from that perspective, thank you. And other trustees, you have other thoughts you'd like to share?
I just thought it was terrific. I loved seeing all the people. Most of them I knew, some of them I didn't. It was great seeing them in situations and in poses that I don't normally see them in. It was very good. I really appreciated it. Thank you.
I just add that I'm in no rush to see it stop. I have not had a chance to participate.
No.
And I think it'd be great to keep it going, and if you need help with that, I'd be happy to help out. Yeah. I realize it takes some effort and time, and but I think the community needs some more of this right now, and it's a great place to focus.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Amber.
I was just going to echo Raj's sentiments and say I think it's really important to keep it going as well. See a lot of negativity on Facebook, and it's nice to see some positives around this.
Thanks, Sam.
Go ahead, Dan. Dan, you're muted.
Yep. All right. Sorry. Thank you. No, as with Amber, I echo Raj and your comments, Andrew. And George, I think it's a great effort or project, and I'd like to see it continue. Those stories have been going on. I know I've lived in the community now for 5 years, and they've been going on all the time. I mean, the way the school system works with the kids in the town coming to the high school, and then as Henry said, competing in track and sports, your opponents, and then you come together and you're a teammate. It's great. I think it's true throughout life in general. I mean, everything. So positive stuff. I like it.
Thank you.
So yes, it certainly sounds as if the board would like to see this continue.
I'll bring that back to the board of Heart and Soul.
We appreciate that. And I see there are some members of the public who wish to also address the questions that were asked. And so first, I think I saw Annie Cooper.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Henry, I would like to thank you because I was crying and didn't think I could read the one with me and Lisa. I'm crying now. But then I've known Henry since he was 4. And I taught him and his brother Nathan to swim. And so when Henry, and also Patrick Heron, and when Henry read the picture of he and Nathan and Patrick, it reminded, and they're going to college, it reminded me that it is okay to be an emotional, have the emotional roller coaster of the experience and share it. And so thanks to Henry and Gabrielle for all the work that you do in conversation and around relationship and with kindness and thoughtfulness and care. I would like to join the trustees and say that I wouldn't mind it continuing. And like Raj, I offer my time if that would help. And also I understand if, you stand where you stand. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
And are there other members from the public who wish to speak on this item? If so, please go ahead and raise your hand using Microsoft Teams. And I'm not seeing any other hands up. So Gabrielle, Henry, thank you both so much. Henry, good luck to you as well. As I understand, you're off to a new chapter in life. So congratulations, and I wish you well.
Thank you.
And don't forget about Essex when you're finished.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for having us. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. Okay, and so now we will go to 6C, to consider an appointment of the trustee to the Cannabis Study Committee. Evan, were you taking this one? Or Marguerite, or other staff member?
I don't know where Evan is, but I can try. I can do just a little bit here. Evan, if you have things that I missed, please do let me know. But I think you can see at least the memo here now. And so this is basically from Robin Pierce and Owiso and Greg in that sense. And essentially they are, they're forming a committee, an internal board committee to do this research. As you know, the cannabis, is a hot topic and is changing fast and is right now in discussion. So they want to put together this team, which you can see here on this memo, and they would like one member from the trustees to join this sort of internal board to have that perspective in there as well. And you can sort of see the select board. Evan, I don't know if you remember who they appointed, but they appointed at their last meeting last week someone as well to be on this board, so the internal cannabis sort of board. So they would love someone from this trustee board to be on there as well.
I think it was Pat Murray.
I think it was Vince, wasn't it?
Vince?
Vince.
Pat Murray. That's it. I don't have any.
Well, thank you for that, Marguerite. And George, I think your hand was up first. Go ahead.
Are you calling on me, Andrew?
Yes.
Tonight's my night to pick on Raj, apparently. But I know that he's discussed this when we've had, when we've just generally discussed cannabis and what's going to happen. And so I'm wondering if Raj would like to take this. But Raj has his hand up. Maybe he's got some other ideas.
I think that's what he was doing, is he was just putting his hand up.
Sorry, he was going to step forward?
I think so.
I'm sorry. Wow.
So let's just end the debate and go to Raj to take it on.
Well,
Go ahead, Raj.
To deflect, I had more of a general question about the overall aim of this, because I see a bit of a hole here in terms of, we've got economic development, we've got zoning, we've got police and community development, but we don't have anybody representing public health or any sort of that aspect of this. And I realize that this is internal and we don't necessarily have that. in our municipal government. But if they're going to make recommendations, presumably to the select board, it seems that those should include input from someone who's an expert in those issues. So those points of view can be considered equally with the others. I think it would be sort of a disadvantage, not disadvantage is maybe the wrong word. I think that input would seem to me to be late and maybe not quite taken as equally if it were to come in public comment after the recommendations were made to the select board, if you get so I don't have anybody necessarily in mind. I'm wondering if that has been discussed, and if it has, how, and if it hasn't, I certainly would like to see someone where the staff reach out or someone reach out and identify someone with that expertise to also provide input on the impacts of this for our community in this process. And I'm going to say I just want to reiterate, I'm saying that not quite understanding the full purpose of doing this, like where this is coming from. So I guess I could have asked that first, but
I do think in terms of the health side of things, I mean, there is a town health officer, Jerry Furkey, who I wonder if this is something that he may have some expertise to help bring to the table. I
mean, I would ask him. I'm thinking we have a relationship with Howard. They have licensed alcohol and drug counselors there. We have Annie, I believe, has been in contact with someone who's going to present before the Economic Development Commission with extensive experience in this topic. So there's others in our community that have this experience. So I just didn't know if that was appropriate or intended.
I think that it might be helpful to hear from maybe Evan or Marguerite or others who helped to put the committee together to better understand the intent, because somebody like from Howard Center may be a good resource to have, a good consultant, a good person to conduct some research with, but whether they're a full-blown member of the committee is another topic. So Evan or Marguerite, I don't know if either of you could expand on that a little bit.
Well, I could touch on it. I also see Robin Pierce is with us tonight. You know, as at least the village board knows, the state is legalizing marijuana. They are proposing, at least at this time, a opt-in to retail sales of marijuana. As with most things with the state, they are providing the rules for where, so it opt-in and maybe some minor boundaries of where you could limit their locations near schools or something like that. And so the idea of forming this committee was to do some of that research of the law as we know it, get some community outreach as to what are some of the restrictions that if the village and town were to think about opting in, what are some restrictions that you would like to see, working with the police as to how they view this activity. And then, as Raj, you mentioned, we'd be happy to contact Howard Mental Center or someone else for their wise input as to this. But just so that you know, we wanted a more broader impact of whether the community wanted us to opt in or opt out. And now,
yeah, I guess I would say that, you know, doing that without considering, you know, we've got Economic Development Commission. So considering the economic impacts of this without also considering or seeking out similar information from the health impacts of this seems slanted to me. I get what you're saying, but I think we either need to put a call out to an interested resident who wants to spend time on a committee, or because I think, I believe the Economic Development Commission is also looking into that avenue, but I feel like I'm not sure why that's their scope. So that isn't a dig on anybody, but I'm not sure why the Economic Development Commission would be looking into the health impacts of cannabis as opposed to sticking to the economic
I don't believe
impacts.
they are looking at the health impacts of cannabis.
I think that's on their upcoming agenda, actually. So I don't have a lot of. I would just encourage this group to really dive into how can they get input, so that the input given to the select board at the end and the trustees includes those thoughts and perspectives.
Could I want to just jump in here. I would, if I look at this committee and the makeup of it, I would say that probably the charge of this committee is to identify those things where we need more expertise. We don't know. I'm going to guess there's probably a lot of information out there already about health impacts, but how accessible is it, and how can you transcribe it and bring it into the community and make sense of it and translate it into action? I would guess that that's kind of the broad charge of this committee, is to figure out what we need to know, what we know and what we don't know, and go after those resources and gather them and summarize them and bring them to us.
I'm not sure who's was next. Robin, I think we haven't heard from you yet, and you have to write this memo. Sorry about that.
It's okay, just sort of big picture stuff. There are some timelines for the Act 164. The governor has named people for the board, Cannabis Control Board. They're going to adopt rules, but not before March 1st, 2022. On or around May 2022, they're going to begin issuing licenses for small cultivators, testing labs. And on or before October 1st, 2022, begin issuing licenses for retailers. Now, there are some tools for municipalities, and also, from my perspective, there's a spectrum here. Retailers, how many people are going to be employed there if we're looking at an employment perspective? But if it's cultivation or value-added manufacturing, there could be a lot more jobs in that than in the retail side. But tools for municipalities, I'm just thinking off the top of my head here. When it comes to this, if we opt in for retail, is we could have smoke or vape-free ordinances, permit retailers in certain districts, create a buffer between those spaces and where youth congregate. And we could have healthy retail practices, safe routes to school, signage, product placement. There's a lot of stuff to think about here. Also, I'm not sure what I said, or I'm just checking something here online. If the village does want to opt in for retail, it has to happen by March 1st, 2022. So we'd have to have I'm guessing, a village-wide vote before that date. But the rules haven't even been set up yet. Hopefully they're going to start this June, but it'll be quite a while. The governor just about picked, I think it's 3 people for the Cannabis Control Board, just a little bit after April 1st. So we're lagging behind a little bit. There's a bit of time, but there's lots to think about. So other things we can't really control, other things we can control retail sales.
Thank you, Robin. And so what I would say is it really does seem as if this committee is to be that the research arm into what is it that we can do? How do we leverage those capabilities one way or another? How do we then present this, and how can we message this information out to the community? And a part of that should then also be the health side, the health impacts, not just the economic side of this, so that way we can have a balanced conversation. But whether we need to have a Howard Center employee or a cannabis expert on the committee, I think is not necessary, but rather to have them as an expert to come in and speak to this group, I think would be more useful than having them at every meeting.
Yeah, and the municipality does have an opportunity to set up their own cannabis control board, so they could control what happens in their community with cannabis. It's a sort of subset of the state cannabis control board. It would be a village cannabis control board.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Raj.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought I was turning my hand off.
Amber?
Lowering my hand. Sorry.
Just one comment. As far as what Robin's saying about the cannabis control board for the village, my take on this was that it was going to be similar to what the state does with licensing of liquor establishments, bars and such, that the town would actually be the one who would, authorize the establishment and re-up the license yearly or whatever, bi-yearly, whatever it is, the time frame. But maybe something different than that. Robin can explain. I didn't think it was the village that would actually have the say over that.
Yeah, we can do it through a zoning bylaw. We can issue conditional. We can issue conditional approvals of a local license through a zoning bylaw. The uses are subject to zoning, so we have some control from that perspective. I guess, Dan, you're right. It's a bit like, they may have to go to the town to get a liquor license, but they have to come to the village first to get approved to open a restaurant and bar.
So unless there's anything else from the trustees, we can turn this over for public comment if that works. And Annie, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
I appreciate that the Economic Development Commission does not exactly fall within the village. It's complicated. But since I'm the chair of the Economic Development Commission, and Raj is correctly stating that at our next meeting, which is tomorrow morning, we do have someone presenting in this vein about cannabis, and I would like to please speak to three things. I say three randomly, could be four, could be two. One is that organically, due to the fact that I have decided to start putting the agenda up for local option tax and cannabis from the EDC meetings onto Facebook, it has created some discussion and some people talking about how they feel about local option tax and everything else, which is what we want. We want to get feedback about local option tax. We want to get feedback about cannabis. We want to get feedback. That being said, it was Raj himself that made a great comment on the Facebook post, which sparked a discussion at the next EDC meeting about the health discussion. And it just so happened that a village resident, Mariah Sanderson, who is, I'm sorry, I'm going to my notes. Mariah Sanderson is the coalition director for the Burlington Partnership for Healthy Prevention Works Vermont. She works with Justin Hoy at Essex Chips in their thing, so there's some intertwining there. And so she happened to be somebody coming to the meeting last week, 2 weeks ago, and we ran out of time. And so I invited her back as a resident to talk about what she wanted to talk about up front of the meeting so that I didn't waste time on the next meeting. And then we organically got into a conversation about a thing that is in our mission statement. So the Economic Development Commission has in our mission statement an appreciation for the impact of emerging issues, trends, and state or municipal policies on both current and prospective business development. I would suggest that the Economic Development Commission very much has space to be in conversation with residents, with everyone about all the topics. However, I agree with Raj that it doesn't belong at our table. My hope was to have Mariah Sanderson speak tomorrow morning. You're all invited. It's at 8 a.m. so that we could put this out there before the conversation turns very businesslike. I would recommend as a resident and as the Economic Development Commission chair that from my standpoint, as a resident, as a community member, and as somebody who greatly embraces business and all that it does for our community, that we do have someone on the committee that has this background, so that there's a constant, well, I'm just going to repeat what Raj said earlier. He's correct. It doesn't belong at the Economic Development Commission beyond this one presentation. And I do believe it belongs at the committee level for a consistent conversation that remains healthy for our entire community as we do this great stuff with cannabis that will be a great resource for us in so many ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. And I thought I had seen another hand from Lori, but it looks like she has taken her hand down. All right, go ahead, Lori.
Hi, and I apologize, I'm not on video. I just want to say, to keep in mind that there is a huge resource on the House Government Operations website from all the testimony that was taken last biennium that would help get to some of the questions I think that you're looking for, and experts that came in and did provide that testimony that can help inform the decisions of the committee. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a resource. And obviously, if Karen Dolan and I can help in any way, let us know.
Thank you, Lori. Other members from the public wish to address this item? Seeing no other hands up, go ahead, bring it back to the board. So, Raj, is this something that you would be interested in, or are there other board members who would be interested in serving on this committee? Don't all jump at once.
Raj is either very still or he's lost.
I just lost my connection. I didn't know what's going on. I just had to leave and come back. What happened?
We just appointed you to the committee, Raj.
Well, I was going to say I appreciate that. I'm a little hesitant because I'm already doing the diversity and inclusion, the dual committee that is just about to ramp up with 4 or 5 meetings. I'm happy to try it, but I'd be interested to see if anyone else from the trustees wants to do it first. If not, I'll try. I don't, what kind of commitment are we talking about, Evan?
Robin?
I would ask Robin. He and Oiso are doing that, but Amber also has her hand up. So maybe we can answer that. Amber.
Why don't we first know what the commitment is and finish that question, then we can go to Amber.
Yeah, I think we have to think about this seriously. We seem to be getting more and more committees. Amber and I are now on the Economic Development Committee where we staff it. The Housing Committee, Planning, Zoning, other committees, and now this committee. If we're not going to run out of hours, we're going to run out of daylight very quickly. So it's important, but we have to make sure that we're not overstretching people, because when that happens, you don't get the quality product you're looking for.
Okay. Amber.
I was going to jump in and save Raj and say I'd volunteer.
All right.
There you go. There you go.
You're welcome, Raj.
That is camaraderie.
All right.
I will expect my cinnamon bun tomorrow.
There you go.
You'll get a literature review on it too. But yes, cinnamon bun's coming. The whole tray.
All right.
All right. So it sounds like Amber is willing. So would someone like to make a motion to approve of Amber being the trustee member?
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you, George. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Great. Amber, thank you for doing that. I think you'll also bring a great lens to it as well.
Yep.
So looking at the agenda, we have moved D and E, and so now we go into F, the discussion of the annual meeting outcomes. So to try and help frame this, what I'd like to have as a goal from this is really to debrief and discuss the next steps or to debrief the outcome, but to also discuss and identify what the next steps are for us as a board of trustees and also for us as a community. With the permission, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have us trustees quickly go around, talk about briefly our thoughts and what we've heard, and then from that point in time, turn it over to the public to help us in this process. So does that overview and process work for you guys? Work for you all? So I'll just kick it off from the debrief. I mean, for me, it seems overwhelmingly that the community wants to merge, but the village appears to be not, we don't have a dance partner for that option. So as such, I would also then say that overwhelmingly the village is perfectly fine separating, knowing that merger failed. For me, that overwhelming sentiment from the community tells me what our marching orders are. In terms of the capability to get there, to get a charter ready by November, I think maybe a bit of a tough stretch, but I don't think it's unheard of. I don't think it's impossible. Given the standing at the polls for the few hours that I was there, I would say that I heard nothing contrary to that. So for me, I feel that our next steps are pretty clear. Other trustees?
I'll weigh in quick. I've heard from a lot of people in passing on the streets and in the village. Just asked them prior to the vote what their opinion was on things, and I think overwhelming opinion was that if this didn't move forward, they wanted to move forward with separation, and I don't see separation as the end of a great community as a whole. I think we can still coexist as two separate municipalities and share some things if we choose to do so. But I think we need to move forward, and the momentum that we have right now, I think it would be an error or big mistake to let this lapse and not continue with this momentum and carry it through to the fall. So that's my opinion in brief.
George, Raj, Amber?
I'm happy to go. I look at it and say, I try to, I think I said this before, I think the message I get, I'm trying to glean a positive message. We've had two very emphatic no's from the town about merger, and I'm going to say we didn't do exit polling, so we don't know why people voted the way they did, but I would say the message I get is that the town just does not want to have us become a large community. We have a bit of a dichotomy here. If we call ourselves Essex, the second largest community in the state, we think we have roughly 22,000 people. Right behind us is Rutland. Right behind them is South Burlington. The current fiscal year budget for Rutland is $22 million. The current fiscal year budget for South Burlington is $26 million. The current fiscal year budget for Essex is $15 million. How is this economic miracle possible that the second largest community in the state is providing full services for $7 million less than Rutland and $11 million less than South Burlington? And the answer is it isn't, because the Essex budget, unlike the South Burlington and Rutland budget, doesn't include the operating costs of the most densely populated part of the community. When you add in the village's budget, you get $19 million. That's what it costs to run Essex. It costs $19 million, not $15 million. And until we all understand that and accept it, we cannot be a unified community. unfortunately. And so I think with merger, we said we would be happy. We understood the impact of this for the folks outside the village. We were willing to phase it in over 12 years. The answer emphatically has been no twice. I think we have to look on the positive side of that and say it's not necessarily about the money. It's just probably about the change in the political landscape. But I think that is the clear answer we've gotten from the town. But I think the clear answer we have to send back is that the disparity in funding and the responsibility in the tax burden is unsustainable for the village. And so we must take action. We've been saying that all along. There's no secret about it. And so if separation, we looked at separation as an option for governance change. The community now is our community in the village is emphatically telling us that's what they would like to do. So I think it's something that we absolutely have to take seriously. Thanks.
Thank you, George. Amber or Raj? Or if you
I
want
feel
to
like I
jump.
can really add anything more to what's already been said, so I'll just echo the sentiments.
Yeah, I'll do the same. I think everybody's pretty much hit it right in the head, and I'm disappointed. I think we had a great opportunity. I think the merger proposal that was put forward that both boards and especially the governance subcommittee spent, I don't know how many evenings working on, was a fair, respectful, conscientious, genuine, honest offer of an effort to come together, respecting the challenges that folks in the town outside the village had. I'm disappointed that they're at how this played out, but I'm very excited with the energy in the village. I'm very excited to see people who can see a future for the village, and just the level of energy around that. It's great, and I really want to run with that. I think people are tired of this conversation, but our neighbors in the village are raring to go. They're really ready to envision a new Village of Essex Junction and what that means and what it can mean. And I'm all for it. And I think we should move with deliberate speed. I'm not sure how November fits into that. I'm one of those that's not ready to commit to a date for that yet. I think we need to be thoughtful and most importantly, I think we need to be engaging the village and figuring out what we see as the new village going forward before we move to call the question, as it were. So I'm excited, disappointed and excited, I guess, at the same time. But yeah, let's hear what everybody else has to say.
Thank you, trustees. So with that, I will turn it over to public comments. So if you are using Microsoft Teams, please go ahead and raise your hand to let me know you'd like to speak. For some ground rules, if you have questions, I will take your questions down and do my best to answer them once everybody has had a chance to speak. If a question may arise, or if a question is dependent upon the answer to another question, just get all your questions out, please. Please expect to only speak once. I'm not going to set time limits, so please don't just take this opportunity to go too long. So with that, go ahead, raise your hands and let us know what is on your mind. All right, Micah, thank you for starting this off. It's not an easy position to be in.
I don't actually have much new to add to it. I just wanted to say from the public perspective, I think what you were all just saying nailed mine and my wife's sentiments exactly. I wish the merger would have worked, but now that we are where we are, we've got our direction. I say go for it, and thank you.
Thank you, Micah. And for those watching, please know I'm not trying to not pay attention to you, but I'm trying to write down questions that arise. So please don't take offense if I'm not staring at you as you're talking. So, all right, Mike Sullivan, go ahead. Mike, you are muted. If you could unmute yourself and then go ahead, the floor is yours.
I knew that. I disagree with George. It is about the money. It's about my money. It's about my money that for services I don't get. The die is cast, the track is switched, the throttle is wide open.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Mike. Elaine, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. I just want to say a thank you to each one of you and to the staff for coming to the table with the select board in good faith and for working so hard all these years on a merger charter that was full of compromise and full of innovation and plans that would have made a very good merged community. And I'm very disappointed that it didn't work out. But I want to thank you all for the enormous amount of work that you did to get it as far as it got. And I also want to commend you for taking the extra step of approving a advisory vote so that you now do know what the community is interested in pursuing. You've saved a lot of time by doing that. And so thank you for having the foresight to ask that question at the same time. And I do see on the agenda that you have a discussion about a merger alternative committee. So I think that's an excellent idea, and I urge you to pursue that. Thank you very much for all your hard work.
Thank you, Elaine. Anybody else?
Come on, people. Get into it.
Go ahead, Annie.
I thank you for so many opportunities to speak this evening. And I always feel heard and respected, and I'm so grateful. George, sorry, I should talk to Andrew, right? But I got to talk to George. George, you pushing for that 12 years, tooth and nail for the town outside the village, you pushing for that 12-year tax difference, you pushing and fighting hard for that respect for TOV residents will go down in history in my heart for someone doing the right thing.
Okay.
It was just beautiful.
It's
So
okay.
I just love
Okay.
it. I think about it a
Okay.
lot, and I just
It's all right.
love the passion. Okay, that being said, I agree with Andrew that our community has been very clear. I think the quiet here tells you that, and I think that even the agenda item probably shouldn't be called, what's the name of it that Elaine just said? Merger.
The Committee of Merger Alternatives.
Yeah, just call it separation and call it a day. Like, come on, in my opinion. And then I do want to bring up a sticky topic. May I? Really?
Why not?
Okay. I wrote it down, so I'm going to read it. I don't do that much, so please know how seriously I'm thinking about this. I, as a town of Essex resident, pay taxes to the town of Essex, and that includes payment for taxes for, not payment, but taxes for the Essex community, the town of Essex Community Development Department. However, and I think this is a legality, actually, the town of Essex cannot and does not provide village residents with those services. So I'm a town of Essex resident. I pay taxes to the Town of Essex Community Development Department, and I receive 0 of those services for my tax dollars. To compound this issue, I then pay 100%, so it's 41% of my taxes go, 41% of village taxes go to that. 100% of village taxes go to pay for the village community development department. So 41% of the Town of Essex Community Development Department is funded by the residents of the Village of Essex Junction who receive 0 services from that relationship. 100% of the Village of Essex Junction Community Development Department comes from village taxpayers. I have dedicated my time and energy as a volunteer to the Town of Essex Community Development Department as the chair of the Economic Development Commission, and I have great ideas and passion for all the things, that I've been really excited about. And so I'm in a personal struggle, right? Because I have my energy, for me, my energy is valuable. My energy is where I have value. And what I choose to put my energy toward is where my value lay for me. Whether or not someone agrees with me, it's okay. So I'm in a sticky situation. Do I continue to confidently say yes to the town ballot budget item and give 41% of my tax as a village resident who we then get for, and then confidently say yes to the community development, to the budget, and then serve as the chair as a volunteer? Like, it's complicated. And so a little bit, I think, maybe we uncomplicate it. Not my particular problem. That's for me to decide. And obviously, I can't change at all myself anything to do with the Economic Development Commission for the Town of Essex, because that is the select board's job, and that is the oversight. But there's no oversight of the Economic Development Commission from the trustees. Yet our community development director participates. So do you understand? Like, I don't need to say this more, right? You hear what I'm saying? So I'm like a little bit mind blown. Part of the Economic Development Commission bringing committees together towards an idea of merger, towards, all those things, was that the Economic Development Commission went to visit the Village Planning Commission, and the Village Planning Commission was eager and prepared to take action in their new coding laws to have dedicated money set aside to give to the Economic Development Commission for funding for building out better businesses. I would recommend, as a resident, speaking only as a resident, I wouldn't want to see that happen. I would prefer that village money stay in the village. So anyway, these are complicated things, and I don't think enough people think about them, but I'm certainly thinking about them today. And I just offer you that I'm, thinking about it. Thank you very much for letting me be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Go ahead, Gabrielle.
Thanks. I have some comments that kind of written down, and I have some that are a bit off the cuff. I'm really grateful and thankful that I live in the village today. I'm grateful to let go of my hopes of merger. I now see it's not a path that's open to me or to Essex. I believe that the majority of our neighbors across the village border will never vote for an equitable provision of services and the taxes that pay for them. George, you hit it right on the head. And I find myself having some sympathy or empathy for those that say, well, why can't we just try again? And someone said to me, well, Gabrielle, not everyone has the history that you have. It's not a question of history for me. It's a question of logic, right? I mean, what is the plan that's going to get us across the finish line? I don't know what that is. I haven't heard it from my select board, and I haven't heard it from my TOV colleagues and neighbors. I have no idea what it is that's so important to them that yet again they vote down this plan. To me, we have to merge and then move forward. But that's not going to happen. And I don't see I have an analytical brain. I don't see any reason why. What's the logic of waiting and trying again? I honestly don't see it. So my primary concern today is to let go of that and know that no miraculous future merger plan is going to pass. I put a lot of energy into finding a common way forward for Essex and Essex Junction, and I'm really glad that I did. I'm so grateful for the revote because the result to me, it helped make it clear. It helped me let go and say, yep, we did the best we could in our community and the village, right? As you've all noted, we've tried so hard to make this work. And it's okay that that's not what they want, And so let's move on for all of our sakes, for our sake and for the sake of the town. We could all name 15 things we'd rather do than go at this again. I share your disappointment. For me, the revote was always about the vote from the Essex Middle School ballots, always. I had hoped to see that our neighbors might finally understand, accept, and vote to end the tax inequity, that we would merge and then work together. I had hoped that my neighbors would not believe the corrosive and inaccurate narratives about who we are in the village, about the services we provide. Just today, I saw, another post on Front Porch Forum for one of the leaders of No Merger Now describing them as luxury services. I mean, what is that narrative, right? And why do people believe these things? For me, it's just a good reason to let go and to move forward. And I'm ready to move forward with clear eyes and an open heart to work with all of you and to choose the best path forward for this village. Separation is something I really want to look at. That's what that vote is about. It's this understanding if that's the best path forward. It's not a revenge thing. It is not any sort of anything other than our community working together to decide what matters and act on that for all of us, to make a wise decision that's grounded in what matters most to us. And just my last comment is that I have so much faith, and I'm really grateful that the 5 of you are on the board to help us with that. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Elaine, I do see your hand is up. I just want to make sure that other people who have not yet spoken have had an opportunity to speak. Irene, go ahead.
Thanks so much. Gabrielle, if you were reading the same post I was, I believe the phrase was lavish services. And
I'd appreciate you directing your comments to me, please, Irene. Please don't engage in dialogue with other members of the public.
Thanks for that reminder. I believe the post that was seen was referring to lavish services, meaning a much higher budgeted amount for the Brown Library, for example, and the EJRP rec department than the comparably named departments under the town. I also heard a comment that mentioned getting nothing for one's town tax dollars when it comes to recreation. Maybe everyone here does not use Indian Brook Reservoir, has never hiked at Saxon Hill, but the town has many, many parks that a lot of folks enjoy who don't necessarily live outside the village. So just a reminder that you might want to check out what that town budget pays for before assuming that you get nothing for those tax dollars. Thanks very much.
Diane Clemens, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. I like to present the dead fish in the room, and I'd like to thank the state of Vermont for the fact that creating an incorporated village meant the town that village was incorporated within was not required to provide any services once that incorporated village was established, which has just fomented what has happened for decades. I hadn't realized that piece until recently in reading some materials dealing with our merger effort. So we've been set up by the state. Thank you very much. And let's place the blame back and put the dead fish in their feet. As the causing this to continue where it didn't need to go. I would like to see this community remain whole. I have been very discouraged over the last couple months. But what really discouraged me the most was hearing about the distrust that my fellow town folk on either side of that dotted line have of each other. And it's become because of various segments of this community. Despite the efforts of those who are trying to work cooperatively to move in a forward direction, I hope that we can move in a forward direction. If that happens to be separation, because that's where life has taken us, then let's go there and put our effort into that. Because I hate to say it, it's kind of like the Hatfields and the McCoys, and at some point in time, I don't want to see the guns come out, but I already hear them. They're rattling out there, and I don't like it anymore. The disgust with people talking about dividing the school district. Well, you know what? That's probably the one saving gem this entire community's got. We got a group of people working for the best interests of students, okay, cooperatively providing the opportunities they didn't have before this merger. The effort and the shining star that is providing to us, I hope we continue to look at it. So let's move forward, guys. It's the only direction we really have at this point. Okay, there are too many bridges that I'm quite sorry to say are being bombed and ready to be lit. And some of them, I'm sorry to say, the tinder is just too close. Well, so let's move forward and say, you know what, guys, we did our best effort, and let's move forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Diane. Dylan, you're next.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me here. Hello, everyone, and thank you to the trustees for your public service and the staff for the support, and for everyone who's come out here tonight. I can tell you that when Candace and I have recently walked around our community as it started to thaw out and spoken with neighbors about their thoughts on this topic, I mean, we really hear everything. And that comes also from our friends who live outside of the village, who present other viewpoints. And I just really want to encourage everyone here tonight to recognize that whatever you look at for alternatives, whatever the different ideas are that are put on the table, just to emphasize that we really need new voices that are representative of all the viewpoints in this community. And I know that you're accustomed to bringing those to the table. I know that you're sensitive to that. But, you know, I hear a lot of voices in these conversations that I've heard over and over, and that's because they're committed, they're dedicated, they want what's best. But I worry sometimes that we don't hear all those other community voices that are also frustrated, that are also looking for alternatives, that may have some really creative ideas. Because whether or not you were in favor of merger or not, the conversation we're having is a really important one. It's about where do we want to be, not now, not 5 years from now, not 10 years from now, but in the future. What resources do we want to have at our disposal? How do we want to leverage them? Who do we want at the table? And how do we work together to be a really strong community that continues growing in a way that's thoughtful, that meets the needs of our community members, and moves us forward? So I just encourage you that as we start this conversation, whatever it may be, bring the voices to the table, listen to them, ensure that we're reaching folks in new and creative ways. Because whatever we do, it's going to have to be really creative for us to be competitive moving forward. So if I can help, if Candace can help, if folks on our street can help, I know there's a lot of folks who are ready to lend a hand. So let's get to work, do this together, and hopefully we can build a better path. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. Tim, you're up.
I wasn't going to speak, and then all of a sudden I felt compelled. So again, you know, I just want to reiterate the statements and the sentiments of tonight. I think that if we look at where we're at, I'm personally exhausted from merger. I don't see a viable path or solution that gets us anywhere closer than another 30 years of bickering. And frankly, I'm tired of it, and I just don't have it in me anymore. I wanted to take a minute and just thank the board to really say I'm glad that you're hearing the voices from within the village. I know it's a difficult position. I believe that if there's a group of individuals that can get us to where we need to be, that it's you folks. I've had many private and side conversations with a lot of you. I know you to be trusting and caring, and I just wanted to express my thank you to you and say I'm happy to be a village resident. I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm truly blessed to be here this evening.
Thank you, Tim. And is there anybody else who has not yet spoken that wishes to speak? And those of you who have spoken, if you are not looking to speak again, please do lower your hand to help ease my confusion.
Andrew, I may be up in the presenters area only because my phone is linked to, but this is Harlan Smith.
Yeah, go ahead, Harlan. So sorry.
Thank you. That's all right. Obviously, as with most villagers, I'm disappointed, but I'm at the same time I'm happy. I've been on many jobs where you're trying to get buy-in, and you ask the question, and there's hesitation or a direct no, and then you ask the question one more time, and if the answer is still no, then you do the job yourself. And I think we're in the same situation. So I would encourage you to follow the vote, which was, if merger wasn't going to happen, to seek separation. I am going to ask a question since I don't think you've had too many opportunities to make notes there. So for a simple-minded person who really doesn't know how the municipality piece of it works, but I feel like a lot of the work has been done, and there's not a lot of dividing up that needs to be done. I feel like the charter is pretty simple. We write a charter. We want to take care of ourselves. This is what we're going to do. I know there's some stuff that's intertwined. Most of it's MOUs. I think some of it's easily undone. So if there's any way that somebody might be able to speak to that would be great. And then my last comment, I would just like to encourage you to get out to all the parks. Colchester has some beautiful parks. Burlington has some beautiful parks, and you don't pay taxes to go and see those. Thank you.
Thank you, Harlan. And just so I can try to best understand the question, it's really about how would separation work, and is it more than just drafting a charter?
Yeah, I guess you could word it at that, but I mean, for me, it seems pretty simple. We draft a charter to become our own independent. I assume that since we already know that there are some other incorporated villages that became cities, there's probably charters out there with a lot of the language we already need. So if you can speak to it, if it's more complicated than that, then sure. I mean, I don't want to tie the meeting up for a long time, but I feel like this is pretty short and sweet. And I know that, yeah, November's probably a stretch, but if it is as simple as I'm thinking, there should be potentially a charter in place by November. So yeah, if somebody gets a chance to speak to that a little bit, that would be great.
I will make sure to do my best when we get there. Thanks. You, Harlan. Sarah Michelle, go ahead. Sarah Michelle Stoltz, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. And
sorry, I was having a little trouble with the buttons there. Hi. So I just want to say I am feeling the same way as many people here. And thank you, Harlan, for talking about different parks, because I have to say I have had so much fun in Colchester, so much fun in Jericho, Underhill, just some places that we can go hike and enjoy nature. And then we can come back to our village that is bikeable, walkable, shoppable, friendly, and loving. and that's awesome. So I just want to respond to also Andrew too, talking about our rep department and our library. I just want to say that, I also in the past had a few concerns about, how much money in our budget we put towards the library. But then somebody wisely told me that it's more than the library. It's a community center. And we don't have a community center. And I used one in Milton, and it was fabulous. And I always said to myself, we need a community center in Essex. There's so much need. And our library has become that. And that's really a lot less expensive, I think, than a community center. So I am so appreciative of all the financial support and the volunteering support that we've given to our library, because I think it's one of the best. And I really don't find that, because I've been to the town library, I really don't find that happens there. It's not in a location that allows for like teenagers to go after school and, the 4th and 5th graders like we do at Fleming. And so, yeah, so I just want to mention that. Also, I've also been a little concerned that I completely support our move forward, and I want to know when we can start with that process. I also am wondering how we can maybe divide things up into like what are the areas that we need to research so that we're covering all the bases and getting everybody informed to research how we can separate and move forward. It's time. We've spent way too much time and energy on this. I want us to take our time and energy and the fabulous energy we have in the village and the fabulous minds we have and put them together. And I think it's going to be great. And I'm really excited about it. And I'm ready to jump in and help. The last thing I'm going to say is that, yes, I was in favor of merger, but the bad taste that sort of the hate that I started to hear from a small group really has just left that bad taste there. And I just want to get that bad taste out. And I'm looking forward to that. So hopefully those people in the town will think about maybe putting their energies into perhaps coming up with their plan of merger if they really, really, really want to try. I don't know. It's up to them, but I know which way we're going to go forward. So I appreciate everybody here, and thanks for everybody for all their efforts.
Thank you. And so just looking through the list, going to those who have not yet spoken. John, the floor is yours.
It doesn't make any sense to reiterate what everybody's saying. Thank you to everyone who did a significant amount of work. But I really don't think it was for naught. All of that work that went into trying to have a merged community got us to where we are now. A few years ago, I was rewriting the 125-year history of the fire department. And I got a chance to read a lot of stuff that was written in 1893 when the village of Essex Junction decided to step out. And they did. And look what our forefathers have created. And if we did it then, I'm sure we can continue to do it now and turn the village into exactly what we want it to be. I'm all done. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Sam, go ahead.
Hi, folks. Thank you. Just want to reiterate support and my appreciation for all the work you have done. I'm from the city of Rutland, within the town of Rutland, so I know of these troubles. Don't know why I moved from there into the same situation, but I will caution folks that separation may not be a panacea. It may not magically make all the acrimony go away. It's going to require effort on our part dealing with our neighbors in the town. when and if we're separated. So I support the effort and I'm excited for it, but I want to set some expectations there that there's still going to be a lot of fences to mend. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And as I'm looking back through the list, I'm seeing no new hands up. So for those who have already spoken, if you can please try to keep this brief, that would be greatly appreciated. Elaine, please go right ahead.
Thanks very much for the chance to speak again. I appreciate it. I want to make a request / recommendation and then just address two other things. There are still, as Annie brought up, the community development cost that village taxpayers bear for both the town and the village. In a similar way, the village also underwrites the capital budget for the town of Essex, and 42% of village tax receipts, 42% of town tax receipts for capital come from the village. But the FY22 budget for the town of Essex does not include, it is 98% spent in the town outside the village, projects that are going to occur outside the borders of the village. There is a small amount of money there for equipment, which would be shared, but 98% of the town's capital budget in FY22 is going to be spent outside of the village. Historically, for the last several years, that percentage of in the high 90s has been the case. The village does not have the option at the moment for our capital projects to be paid for by our tax dollars that are going to the town as part of the town. So in addition, I believe the village's capital budget is around $700,000, the contribution on an annual basis. I may have that wrong.
That's right.
Thank you, George. So my recommendation and request is that regardless of where we go in the future, the trustees have a place to go right now that could deal with a decent portion of the tax inequity that exists by talking to the select board about making sure that either 42% of the projects being handled in the town by that budget happen within the village. That could be either just taking 42% of the town's capital budget and applying it towards the capital project list for the village, or it could be going towards other projects, or it could be reducing the village's contribution from the capital tax, or reducing the village's contribution to its own capital tax and using what comes from the town budget. So there's room there for the trustees to go to the table with the select board and say, this is an existing condition that needs to be addressed. It's not equitable that 98% of our town tax budget is being spent outside of a portion of the town. So I encourage you to explore that opportunity in October when discussions about the budget start happening. Another thing I want to just talk about, if I may, is yes, I agree with Harlan that I think a new city charter is actually not going to be a difficult or time-consuming process. But the process that will be time-consuming is the communications with residents to understand what we want going forward, but also planning for what the administration of a newly constituted Essex Junction municipality would be. There are positions that will need to be hired. There will be agreements that need to be unwound, and there will be new expenses. And so I think that's the planning that is going to take a lot of effort. So not necessarily the charter itself, but what the charter will promulgate in terms of services and personnel. And finally, I just want to acknowledge and uplift something I've heard in many speakers this evening, and that is the emotional lift that has been burdened on the village and the town outside the village during this extremely contentious process. I heard it in Gabrielle's voice, in Tim's voice, in Diane's voice. We are exhausted. This conversation has really shown some rifts in our community. And so I really want to acknowledge that one of the important things is that we move on in a positive way. There is a lot of wonderful positive energy already in the village online about what we're going to do next. And I want to encourage us all to focus on the opportunity that's in front of us and focus on the fact that we are entitled to our own self-determination as a municipality and a community. And I want us all to gird ourselves against the condescension and the misinformation and the bullying and the disrespect that is already starting to come our way, even this evening at this meeting. We are better than that, and we can move forward together and prove that we can stand alone and do it well and bond as a community in a way that we haven't before, because we've been through this collective trauma together. I want us all to focus on the good things that are coming. And again, thank you, all of you, for your intense efforts to bring this community together. Sorry, I went on very long.
No, thank you, Elaine. Those were all very important parts. And you've made my response to Harlan already shorter. So in some ways, you've already cut some time out. Diane, I see your hand is up. Was there anything else you wish to address tonight?
Well, I don't see that my hand's up, Andrew, but no, I don't need to address anything else. Thank you.
Okay, I think I can lower your hand. There we go. Dylan, I see your hand is also up. Was there anything else you wanted to address to the board tonight? Dylan Giambattista, was there anything else you wanted to address to the board tonight? I'm going to go ahead and take that as a no. And Sam Hooker, your hand is also up. Was there anything else you wanted to mention? All right, I will take
some
that.
Microphone open, and there you can hear doors opening and shutting if they can.
My hand shouldn't be up. I'm all set.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we will go ahead and close the public portion and bring it back to the board. George, I see your hand is up. Do you mind if I go through the couple of questions that were asked?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So Harlan's with how separation, what I think I'm oversimplifying as how does separation work and is it more than the charter? Elaine really hit the nail on the head there that it's the charter itself, no, isn't complicated at all. The complexity is really in the transition period. Similar to the merger process, there would be a timeline in which we have to unwind the agreements. We have to draft a budget for the newly incorporated city of Essex Junction. There are people who need to be hired. There are these types of decisions that need to be made, these types of boxes that need to be checked, where frankly that's where I assume the time is going to be taken, not necessarily in just a drafting of a charter. I think there was a question from Sarah Michelle about when can we move forward and how are we going to move forward on this. I would say stay tuned to the next agenda item. It was mentioned before how that was written as a committee to study merger alternatives, and I will admit that I was pretty adamant to have it not just say separation, because personally there was an avenue I wanted us as a board to pursue. I wanted us to look into, I've heard from some residents who live near the village but don't live in the village and live in the town who have said that they wanted to become a part of the village. There is a way to do that. Frankly, what I've also heard is the iron is hot. The desire from the village to just move forward with separation, frankly, outweighs, for me, I think outweighs the timeline in going through that kind of a process of looking to expand our borders or looking to have other members from the town join us in the village. Should people who live outside the village want us to not do that? Frankly, if you want to get a petition together and tell us otherwise, maybe then personally I would consider it. But at this point in time, I think we really need to do what is best for our village. As Elaine so eloquently highlighted the tax inequity that has existed for so long, we need to we need to finish this process or get this process started so we can then finish it. So this next topic, I would say, really is that merger study committee. So if you don't mind hanging on a little bit, you'll learn more about that in a little while. Those were all the questions. Clearly, what we said at the beginning really seems to be the overwhelming sentiment of it's time to move forward with separation. The exhaustion, the frustration, disappointment, I've heard that loud and clear. Frankly, I echo all of those sentiments. Having been a part of this, and George, Raj, I know the two of you as a part of the governance subcommittee for the past 3 years, or the previous 3 years, to get us to this point must also frankly be exhausted with that whole merger conversation. And I can only imagine how that must feel. But I do appreciate the work that you've put into it. So with that, trustees, anything else before we move on to the next topic? And George, I believe your hand was up.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm not exhausted. I'm raring to go. That was just like step one. We got like step 5. I'm large and in charge, man. We're ready to go. No trouble with that. I do want to debunk a popular urban legend, and we sort of edged around it tonight, which is that the village has luxury. We spend our resources on luxuries, like repairing our streets, as Elaine pointed out, because that's the only way they get repaired. The village uses the same statewide pay classification study that the town uses and that all the other large communities use to negotiate our salaries and benefits. I will go, having put together budgets and looked at other municipal budgets, I can assure everyone who from the village, we are extremely efficient. We are extremely well run. We do not have luxury services. Why do we spend more money on the Brownell Library than the town does? Well, why does Essex High School cost more than Essex Elementary School? It's a bigger building. It has more people in it. It costs more dollars per day to open its doors to the public. That's why. It's very simple. We don't have luxury services. One other thing I'd like to point out is that generally speaking, if you look at municipal budgets, densely developed areas are more efficient in terms of municipal spending than rural and suburban areas. It just stands to reason. You send a snowplow driver down the street in Essex Junction, that driver within 30 seconds clears a path for 200 or 300 homes. That same driver to clear that many, service that many places in a rural area like the outer limits of the town probably takes about a half an hour. So generally speaking, generally in terms of municipal budgeting, densely developed areas are more efficient spenders and are more efficient for municipal expenditures. That's about it. I just wanted to debunk that because there's no way I would stack Essex Junction's services up, our fire department, our community development, our parks and recreation. I'd stack them up against in terms of efficiency and cost, against any other community in the state. Thanks.
Thank you, George, for also correcting the disinformation and the distortion of facts. It's easy to create false narratives, and it's a lot harder to do what you've done, which is actually correcting those false narratives. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Trustees, anything else on this agenda item? Okay. Now I need to find my agenda, so bear with me for a moment. I believe the next agenda item was the committee. I don't remember which. Oh, there's the agenda on the screen now. Thank you.
No problem. And it is all right.
So there we are. Item G, discussion and potential action on merger alternatives committee. So as I alluded to a little bit, one of the things that I had said early on is my desire to have this be a merger alternatives committee. At this point, I'm completely happy to have our discussions be about separation. There aren't other alternatives for us to look into at this point in time. I did move forward with taking the the comments at our last meeting to help expand upon the charge of this committee. And in doing so, and in conversations with Evan, one of the things that came pretty clearly to light is the overwhelming majority of the answers that would need to be asked, or the answers to the questions that would need to be asked as to how do we move forward with this process, what is separation going to look like, who is going to do what, those types of things, are questions that between the trustees and staff members, that's where the answers are going to happen. And so the question was, do we need a committee to ask the questions? If, when I was proposing this, the overall goal from my mind was really to engage the community in these conversations. Given the limitations on staff time to continue to meet during the evening, as we just heard earlier from one of our staff members, I'd like to go back to the conversation of, do we want this to be a citizen-led committee, or do we want this to be a major focus of the trustees' work moving forward? And when I say that, what we can do is, instead of adding more meetings to our schedule, if we could agree to have the first hour to an hour and a half of our meetings dedicated to nothing but this topic, I think what that would allow for is to keep this process moving, and frankly would make this more open to the public than having a citizen-led committee. And I say that not to seize power, I say it not to disempower the community, but frankly to help open this up to the community. Otherwise, these meetings would likely have been held during the daytime. These meetings would likely then not have been as open to the public, and frankly I think would have then disallowed members from the public to really weigh in. So with that complete 180 from where we were at our last meeting, I would love to get the trustees' perspectives on that concept. Dan, go ahead.
Andrew, I agree with your comment about the instead of having the separate committee, having a committee meet and then come back to the trustees, discuss what they're doing with the trustees. I think your path forward expedites the process, and it makes it much more transparent, much more easy to follow, rather than duplication. What I'm saying is, when you have an advisory council or meeting, that's at another time during the daytime, what have you, and then the information's passed on. People may not, get the full message, and no, this keeps it, condenses it, and makes it much more easily available to the community as a whole. And just to echo what's been said in the past about the whole creation of the new charter, it's unlike what we did before with the whole merger of two communities. We're looking at one community, one charter, that we don't have to negotiate with another side on this. It's our own deal. So sure, there are things that would have to change, and look at the MOUs and anything, and there's positions to be hired. But as I forget who said it, but somebody, actually I think it was John, said it in 1893, they were able to come up with a municipality, and no reason that 128 years later we can't do the same.
Any other trustees want to weigh in on that concept of having this be a major focus of our meetings moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to pivot to this. As I said in my comments before, I think one thing we're not going to be able to do, well, one thing I'm curious if we'll be able to do is, I wonder how effectively we'll be able to engage and bounce ideas and possibilities back and forth with community in the paradigm you're suggesting, in the process you're suggesting. And I didn't realize that's what we were going to be talking about, so I didn't really think it through. But I was almost going to say, maybe one thing this committee could do would be to take a broader look at bringing or engaging the community in a conversation about what they see the village becoming. What's its short, medium, and long-term future? How is it made up? What's its governance look like? What does its economic future look like? What is its feel? Like, what's the feel? What's the, how does it relate to what we've done with Heart and Soul? How does it relate to what we've done with the design all of it, and instead of doing the minutia work of researching how to undo MOUs and negotiating all of that this citizen committee really, do what we find it difficult to do in these meetings, which is really kind of do public outreach. And that's what they could be tasked with. And then we would have that group be able to bring that information to us. Because I think in this model where we have these public meetings and the way we have to do them, it's very difficult. If 3 of us show up at one of these events, it's a public meeting. There's all kinds of things. But if this, and maybe those rules will apply to this committee too. But I think if we think about the committee in that way, doing the public outreach and doing that work, and we do the more nuts and bolts municipal end of it, that could be one way forward.
Yeah. Go ahead, Amber.
I was just going to say that I support your new approach, Andrew. I think one of the biggest concerns I've had about the committee and the time frame and stuff is I feel that there's a lot of education that needs to happen. And so at least from our perspective, we have that background, so we can kind of hit the ground running. And I think it's absolutely important to have public comment. I think you're right. We're going to get, I think, more folks at 6:30 at night than we are at 2 o'clock in the afternoon or at 8 o'clock in the morning. The other thing I was thinking about the other day was I wonder if there's some, we're doing these coffee chats with the chief and the coffee chat with Evan. While it is a public meeting, it might be helpful to have 1 or 2 of those to try to get during the day to get that other portion of the population. Because I did hear the one coffee event that I attended with the chief there were some concerns about, well, why are we doing this at 10 o'clock in the morning, on a Friday when other folks, maybe can we do it on a different day during the week? So maybe part of this is, maybe one of us take it 1 month or take it 1 week and do every couple of weeks or something and kind of shift the days of the week and times to see if we can get as many public participants as possible.
Coffee with Amber.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to do that?
Right.
Seriously.
With your buns, right? With your coffee buns or whatever?
Coffee and cats with Amber.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Evan.
So just so you know, Amber, I spoke with my executive producer, Tammy Getchell, about my coffee chats, and we have talked about having guests on the chat. So we'd like to book you or any other elected official onto the show. But all seriousness, great suggestion. We've also talked about trying to do it different times of the day, maybe early evening when I don't have a night meeting, and other things, just saying. And so happy to do things like that as well. But I'd love to have guests. And so, because I'm just not that exciting.
I'll talk to my agent, Evan, and we'll be in touch.
Oh, we'll have my people call your people.
Exactly. Yep.
So I do wholeheartedly agree that one of the things that I know personally I am not strong in is the public outreach side of things. I think that it is something that within our municipality we could use some help with, is being able to really do the outreach. And that is, I agree, that's where I could see a committee, a group of volunteers who are much more versed in that than I am, really helping to lead that effort. And I think we were all emailed some ideas on this. it wasn't everybody, I will make sure to forward that and put that into the reading file for our next meeting, so that way we can all be on the same page there. George, go ahead.
Yeah, Annie Cooper texted something into the message file, and it was a thought that I had at the same time, so we're on the same wavelength, I guess. But she asked, or she suggested, why not see if Heart and Soul can't get involved with some of this? They are already well-versed and skilled and have in public outreach, and also they've defined community values for the town as well as the village, and they could help probably transpose some of those values into communication and engagement with other people in the village. Just a thought. Has anyone else thought of that?
No,
and if anyone is here from Heart and Soul, what would they think of that?
I think that is a great direction to go down, as the experience is already there. And so why reinvent the wheel when it's already there?
Right.
Along these lines, Evan, if you don't mind, I know that there is a staff member who has offered to be a part of helping to coordinate this whole process, and really helping to step up and help to lead it. Do you mind having them speak about this and some of the ideas?
No, I don't mind.
All right. So, Brad, I see that you're with us. Are there other thoughts you'd like to share?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Andrew. I had the chance to speak with some folks today, and I think there's a great opportunity that you have outlined, Andrew and Raj. I think you kind of have hit the nail on the head too, in terms of letting the trustees do the boring work of writing the charter and dealing with all the complexities of what's going to have to be done to undo all of the consolidations that have been done, to build a budget, to build an org chart for the future. I think you are the group that can tackle all of that. I do think, listening to people talk earlier in the meeting, there is a lot of really great energy in the village right now, and I think it would be silly not to tap into that and harness it. And the Heart and Soul is actually working on a press release to dissolve. So I don't think that group per se is going to be able to take on this work. But I think there are plenty of folks in the community who'd be willing to step up and do that kind of work. And so I think you could create a parallel committee that is going out and doing the outreach, asking people the questions, engaging with them. It's a great time of year to launch something like that as things become safer with COVID and the nicer weather, to do a lot of stuff outdoors this summer, and interact with the community and figure out what it is they love about living here and what they want to do in the future. And I think it would totally be possible for those two groups to then come back together in the late summer or early fall and have a village celebration and summit and preview the new charter and plan and preview all of the great work that they've done as you get ready to try and get this thing voted on before the end of the year.
So one thing I want to bring up, and you just hit this part, is the end goal. I know for me, I tend to struggle understanding where we're going if I don't understand the timeline that we're operating within. I know that there have been a few people who have talked about, we don't need to go about this too fast. Frankly, I want to propose a strong disagreement with that, and I would like to see us get this process completed, and this may sound ambitious, but follow that November timeline. And the reason I say that is whatever we propose ultimately has to be approved of by the legislature. Given that the legislature meets from January to May, if we wait until our normal April elections, by that point in time, it's too late. By that point in time, we also find ourselves into the next biennium. And frankly, at that point in time, we don't really know who's going to be on first. We don't know what the outcomes may very well be. We don't know who may be representing us in the legislature. So honestly, if we want to do this, and if we want to do this seriously, I'd like to challenge us to get this process done before Thanksgiving and look to see if we can have this vote this upcoming November, realizing that is how many months? 7 months away. So it is certainly an expedited timeline. But without that, I think honestly we're putting ourselves up for some increased risk. So, George, why don't you kick that off?
I just want to say one thing. I would like to argue against having it be a foregone conclusion that we're going to just dissolve all the existing intermunicipal agreements that we have. I would like to approach those with an open mind, because if you're really serious about this, you gotta be serious about doing things that make economic sense for us. And I know that we talked about the police station, and we're all assuming that maybe we would probably continue to want to share that, but there are other things. I'm on the joint town village stormwater committee, for example. It's a sensible, reasonable thing for us to continue. That's just one small example. And I think when I look at the other big intermunicipal agreements we've made, particularly around administration, I wouldn't be so quick to just say we're absolutely going to dissolve those. I would approach it objectively and dispassionately, and with an eye towards doing, saving money, because there are positions where you might have someone like the assessor's office or people in administration where it's going to cost us more, it would cost the town more to provide the same thing. It's where you can get a synergy, and I think it's not something we should just dismiss out of hand. I think it's something we should approach thoughtfully at this point. It just when you're just starting out, and then after you've looked at them and we thought about it. Maybe if you don't want to, if we think we shouldn't continue it, but I think really we should not have that be assume that we're just going to disband all of these intermunicipal agreements that we have. I'd like people to take a good hard look at them.
I don't disagree with you, George. One thing I want to make very clear, though, I don't want us as a village, us as a municipality, to ever be thought of as a customer, to ever be thought of as a second-class citizen or a second-class board. We experienced that this past July. I don't ever want to go back there again. So I don't disagree with you that there may make some sense for some things to explore about not just outright canceling. At the same time, if we are not guaranteed an equal seat at every single table related to the service delivery, related to the budgeting, related to the oversight of those, then frankly, that's a zero, a non-starter for me. Again, that July was one of the most painful experiences I've ever experienced being on a board, and I never want to experience that again, nor do I want to see our community go through that.
Right. But for example, if you did that, and this is hypothetical at this point, and I don't want to go too far down into hypotheticals because you're trying to get this committee off the ground. I don't want to go down into the weeds, but just as an example, if we negotiated an arrangement with the town, because the town and the village are going to continue we're going to have to continue paying off the police department, the bond for the police department. And so chances are we would have to come to some agreement over it. But that agreement could include that the village now has a seat at the table with any police policy decisions that are made. I mean, you could always negotiate that. You can always put that into a contract.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Raj.
I guess I was going to say that would be part of. I guess that would be part of the, work that we do with whoever's doing the public outreach. That what are the options? What are the costs? Does it make more financial sense to keep a joint clerk, for instance? And really kind of see where people are at if they really want the independence and they're willing to pay for it. But that's part of the outreach. And I guess the timeline, so I don't disagree with you, George. I think it's got to be looked at. Everything's got to be looked at sort of holistically. The timeline, I'm one of those that's not in a major rush, but I get it. I get the process. Just thinking back to obsessing about the process over the merger timeline. I think one of the things if we're going to do a postmortem on merger, and we probably ought to, if we do a retreat, we can always do better on outreach. I mean, there's not been anything we've done in this community in the past 16 years I've lived here that we couldn't have done better on outreach. And I just want to make sure that if we do anything, there's enough time for that. It should be simpler. I mean, it's just the village this time, but that doesn't mean that everybody's going to agree. And I think there's a lot of energy and a lot of momentum, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have people with some really well-founded concerns. And I think they're probably listening tonight thinking, oh, great, now this. And I just want to make sure that we have enough time to really kind of work through that. And if we have a group of people put together that can make that work, then I'm all for it. But I don't want to look back in a year or two and regret not putting that time in, because I think this is a big move. In a lot of ways, I think it's bigger than merging. And I just want to make sure we do it right, and go through the steps as deliberately as we can. So I'm cool with the timeline if we put together a really good process to engage the community, because the rest of it, honestly, there's going to be some difficult negotiations and conversations with the select board. But really, I think the harder conversations are going to be internally with the community.
So any other trustees' thoughts on that?
One thing, Andrew.
Yep.
Regarding Raj's comment, engaging the community, I don't disagree. There's always room for improvement, but in the same respect, I heard about the contract or the charter for a merger, that it's not good enough. It's not good enough. You can go under the assumption it's not good enough. If you're looking for perfection, we might as well stop right now and just go with status quo. We'll never have perfection. We'll never make it as something that a community that everyone's going to like. There's always going to be somebody with a problem with something about it. What we should strive for is the majority, and look down the road and say we've done something, we've created something that's good for the majority of people. I mean, you could dissect any aspect of government and find something that a portion of the community that's not going to be happy. But I'm not looking to try and get that small. I think we got to look big picture, what's best for the whole. And I'm not going to worry and say, well, we didn't. Otherwise, what's the metrics we use to judge how much outreach, and when do we know that we've done enough community outreach? Do we have to poll everybody in the community, and there has to be a certain percentage of the community that weighs in, or it could stymie the process. So I hear what you're saying, but we got to be careful. We got to focus, and as everyone said before, we've got a lot of momentum going, energy going, positive energy, and move forward with this process.
Raj, is your hand still up for something new, or? Okay. So any other trustees, anything else? So, Brad, as I think you've now been deputized as the project coordinator, manager, oversight for this effort. In terms of next steps, what do you think about if we could put together some type of a project plan to see this through and have that ready for our next meeting?
Sure, no problem.
Are there other thoughts that you, or suggestions, answers you'd like tonight to help move this forward?
No, I mean, I think there's enough to put some things on paper for then you all to look at and consider. I know the public, there's some people in the public that probably want to speak to this issue too, that may help provide some more clarity.
Yep, agreed. So if there's nothing else from the board, I would open this up to the public if there are comments you'd like to make. If you have an expert thought, some of you certainly have much more experience in the outreach side of things than I know I do. Would love to hear that. And speaking of that, Sue McCormick, why don't you start us off?
Hi, everybody. First of all, I just want to thank you all for all of your hard work. You've put in a lot of hours and time on trying to plan for the future of our community, and I just really appreciate it. So I want to start there. I just want to really share. I'm really excited that Brad has stepped forward to help you all go forward. And I really like the idea of having two parallel processes happening at the same time. I think that you as the trustees are in a really good position to deal with the technical details of what are the legal issues, how do you work on all of that. But I implore you, please do not engage the community around those technical details. That is where people who have successfully for many years kept the status quo in place. What they do is when we get into the weeds, they can sow enough doubt and disunity around the details to get everybody in an argument with each other. And really what the community is good at weighing in on, and actually what only the community should be weighing in on, is to share with you their vision and their values, what matters to them. And if you can do a good job hearing what matters to the community, you can present a plan and let them know how your plan aligns with their values and their vision. And I think we mess ourselves up when we try to engage with the community around all of these nitty-gritty details, and then we can get ourselves into a lot of confusion. Of course, the community needs to know those details, but if you do a good job engaging them around their values, you can show them how those details align with their values. And you can also see if there are some places in your proposal where there isn't alignment and make adjustments. So I just want to strongly encourage you to consider two parallel processes. I agree, Andrew, there's a lot of energy right now. I think it would be wonderful to get something to happen by November. And I think if you have the trustees working on the technical details, a community committee working on the engagement work, and then you bring all of that together and check for alignment, make the adjustments that you need to, that you could really get this done. And I did have a question about the details. I'm hearing on this call that a charter change is a pretty simple thing to write up. And so I just have a question about timing. How much do you need to have all of those details figured out to be able to write the charter change, or is that something that happens after? So I did have a question about the timing around those things. Thanks.
Yeah, so the vote that we would end up having about incorporating an independent city would need to include the finalized charter, the finalized transition plan. Everything in relation to creating the new community would need to be done at that point.
That's helpful.
Great.
It's a heavy lift, but I think we're ready to do it. I'm really excited. I think we have a great community. There's a lot of energy here, and I think we can get this done.
Right. Thank you, Sue. And I would also ask George if I missed anything there.
That's exactly right. You have to have the charter pretty much, and any other agreements that you're going to bring down to but the charter has to be in finished form before, so voters can know what they're voting on. It can't be. I think when I talked to Sue about this, Sue McNamara Hill, not Sue McCormick. She said, you can have a few minor changes, but you pretty much have to have a finished product before you go to the voters. And the process would be, you would have the vote in November. And then it would go down to the legislature in 1st of January. And at that point, you don't know. You have to take the most conservative estimate and assume that it may not get approved until May. But it could be approved sooner than that or rejected. You don't know. I'll remind everybody, we live in a Dillon rule state, not a home rule state like New York. And the Vermont legislature has all authority to decide what to do with municipal charters. So that's something to keep in mind. It's not just a simple matter of, as the town discovered last year with their 3-3 charter initiative, it went down there and it got tabled. you don't. It's unpredictable. It becomes a political process when it gets into the legislature, frankly.
Thank you, George.
Yeah.
Mike Sullivan, you're next.
Uh-oh. So, yeah, I have so many Post-it notes in front of me now that it'll take a minute to get through. But first of all, this is beyond the last topic, but I really like what Gabrielle Smith says. Gabrielle Smith said about letting go. You know, it's about a friend of mine once said, forgiveness. If you keep the anger, you're still attached. So letting go becomes the thing. And I also want to say that I believe my wife Anne-Marie and I hosted the very first town or village-wide house meeting for Heart and Soul at our house, and it was I was really a little surprised about that. So, yeah. So, I retired last June. This is not what I wanted to be doing, but here and where I am is where we are. So, I would be happy to throw my hat into the ring for this outreach program, and so I would be happy to be considered for an opportunity on that situation. We will be an amazing independent community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Elaine, go right ahead.
Thank you very much. Just want to, like Mike, throw my hat in the ring. With respect, I would love to participate on the technical side, having been very intimately acquainted with the process for many years. I would love to be of any assistance that the trustees might need on the charter development and the transition plan side. And I'm so grateful and frankly relieved that there will be another talented group of people working on the outreach. That's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. Marcus.
Thank you. First off, I want to say that both my wife and I support, she can speak for herself, but I know that she has sent a note into you, Andrew, acknowledging the fact that on her own that she wishes to be a part of, if at all possible, if need be, on this committee or in any way to the trustees to help from a marketing, outreach standpoint. I also am in the similar line of work, so I would also put my name forth, but I also want to recognize what Dylan said earlier and not stand in the way of a diverse voice from our community participating in this process. But I do have a question, and it has to do with the timing. Specifically, if we do this vote, if we time this out so the vote hits in November, as suggested on the non-binding proposal that we just voted on, my understanding is this would be the only thing that we're voting on. We don't have an election this November. So I'm curious about the cost and why we feel the need, outside of this recent vote, why we would feel the need to rush this process to November versus saving it for what might be a money-saving matter to the town, the village meeting vote next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. So I don't know what it would cost to have a village-only election in November, and I would look to, as we go through this process, I would look to staff to help provide that number. In terms of why November as compared to April, without having the amount of money that we're talking about, it certainly isn't something that I think we are committing to tonight. Frankly, I think what we're talking about is a goalpost to hopefully achieve if at the end of the day we find out that there is some other reason we can't, if it's too costly, and we don't have the money for a special election, then that would certainly push it back no matter what. But having that amount will be helpful. The other reason, though, for pushing it forward goes back to trying to get it through this upcoming biennium, or this current biennium, and not waiting until the next biennium in the legislature, as that, again, we don't know who our representatives would be in the next biennium in the legislature, and so that could pose some additional challenges and some additional issues. So that's where that's coming from.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you, Marcus. Okay, I am not seeing. Oh, I am now seeing more hands. Annie Cooper, go right ahead.
So, I'm so excited right now. This is so beautiful. I feel so inspired. I feel so ready. I feel so enthusiastic, and I feel so joyous. I can't be any more grateful than how this I'm sorry, I'm crying. How this conversation has gone this evening and where we are right now. I just feel joyous. I can't keep saying it. I'm joyous, I'm excited, I'm enthusiastic, and I'm grateful. Please start to dismantle. Please, let's go. Marcus Serta is a huge support in my world, and I am so grateful to the Serta family for making me feel like a human. I can't say enough about Elisa and Marcus Serta and what they have done for me, just as a person, to make me feel proud of myself. But Marcus, I want to head for November.
Thank you for that. Anybody else from the public? Okay, I'm not seeing any other hands. Marcus, I assume your hand is still up as a holdover?
Oh, yes, my apologies. And I'm sorry, I never intend to make anyone cry, publicly or otherwise.
Thank you. All right, so we will go ahead and bring this back to the board. So for tonight, we're not looking for, if we were looking to create the committee, we could vote on that now, although I think what we need to do is we need to, and Brad, correct me if you would feel otherwise, I feel we need to wait for some more parameters around this committee before we could actually vote on it. I would just put a plug out to the community to stay tuned for our next meeting, when hopefully we could get this process kicked off to accept some applications and appoint some people to the committee.
Yeah, Andrew, we'll get some details on paper for you guys to explore next time, and then get the process moving from there.
Great. So with that, I think we are finished with this agenda item. And Marguerite, do you mind putting the agenda back up? Because thank you. So the next item that we had, because H no longer is necessary, I was going to be in executive session, so that will bring us into the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with one minor note that the draft minutes from our March 16 meeting do not have the times in them.
Oh. I thought I had sent that out in an email to
Linda, I think, yeah. Okay, let me check with her. I do remember her saying she got them, so maybe they just didn't get into the packet.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember what the time was at that time. So do we just want to pull that one out for the next meeting?
We can do that.
Was that the March 20? Oh no, that was the March 16th.
March 16th, yeah. Exactly. It was an executive session mostly, so that's why the times, yeah.
I don't, Mr. President, I don't think you need to pull it out. Just have maybe the motion approve it and add the times.
For the times to be added based upon the email that I sent?
Yes.
All right.
Sounds like a friendly amendment to my motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you, Dan. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. And into the reading file and board member comments. Any board members?
Andrew, I'll make one comment. I mentioned I was on the Stormwater Committee. Actually, I was requested. It sort of tapered off, and then it got reinvigorated because of some issues that we are dealing with. And so I was asked if I would be. So it was an opportunity. I guess I could have brought it to the trustees and said, "Does someone want to take my place?" But I didn't. I just said, "Okay, I'll do it." And I'm seeing everyone shake their head. I don't think any of you wanted to be on the Stormwater Committee, so I appointed myself to the Stormwater Committee. I hope that's okay.
Amber's very upset.
All right. All right.
I'm crying, but I'll try to hold it back.
It's a thing of mine. I actually like stormwater, so, you know.
I thought Dan was shooting darts through the screen at you.
All right.
The only a couple of things I wanted to point out, one being the Crescent Connector update, and frankly, again, we on the board are pretty well intimately aware of this, but just for the community, just the continued path of the Crescent Connector finally coming through to fruition, and how exciting that is, as well as this potential for the Colchester Essex multi-use path project, which I have to admit the press release I found, or the press release I found a little interesting, as it seemed as if there was a major word that was left out of that press release. So I had to do a little digging, as it said, we are going to create, and then nothing. I just found that part a little interesting, but
that's a pretty exciting project, and hopefully it continues in under 10 years all the way to West Street somehow.
Yes.
Which would be amazing.
Yes, it would. Oh, any other comments from trustees? Staff? Anything you wanted to make sure to get out? All right.
If I could, Andrew, one quick shout out to the clerk's department and all the volunteers that helped put on the election. I don't know if anybody really understands what goes into a local election, especially when you mail out ballots. About, I think, 14 to 16,000 mail out ballots with envelopes stuffed in them, with ballots inside them, and all that goes into putting on this type of election, and how hyper accurate they try to be and gracious to people who may or may not understand which district they live in, where they vote. Are they going to be in town? They might not be in town. Could they do a everything that goes into it? They put in weeks into this, and then you get to the day of the election, and Diane Clemens and her group do it at the high school, and Will Senning over at the Essex Middle School does his group, and it's a Herculean task. So they really deserve a big round of applause and thank you. And by the way, they barely make anything, if anything, what they do, and just the time and the safety. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you, Evan, for saying that, and I'm so sorry that I neglected to.
And the
to say
BCA
that as well.
The BCA, all the envelope stuffing, all the note checking, and all the things. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you for keeping our democracy alive and well, and safe.
And as you guys have all seen, mail-out voting by mail has extended the votes from people and so I think you guys for making that decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Evan.
Yes, thank you. Okay. So I'm just getting to the motion part for our executive session. Bear with me for a moment.
Sure, Andrew, you should see it on the screen, maybe.
Yeah, thank you. I think we want the other one though.
Oh, here. Sorry, there we go.
And do we have, yes, I do see we have Jim with us, okay. So I move that the trustees make the specific finding that general public knowledge of pending or probable civil litigation to which the public body is or may be a party would place the village at a substantial disadvantage. So I made that motion.
I'll second.
I'll give that one to Raj. Any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. I move that the trustees enter into executive session to discuss pending or probable civil litigation to which the public body is or may be a party pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A1E to include the unified manager, assistant manager, and water quality superintendent.
I'll second.
Thank you, George. And just again for clarification, Evan, we don't need our attorney, right?
We are going to have our attorney, and just for clarification, we are not coming back into this. So when you guys make that motion, we're going to adjourn, and then we're going to go into exec session.
Okay, so George,
So I will close out the meeting
So
and
George,
meet you at executive.
Okay, thanks, Evan.
do you accept my amendment to
Yes.
also include the village attorney?
Yes.
Thank
Yes.
you. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? All right, as Evan said, we will not be coming back, so thank you all for joining us. Have a great night, and I look
Thank you
forward
all
to
very
this next path.
Thank you.